Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode of the Hippie Life Brand Podcast. It's episode number 12 and today I want to talk about freedom. When you hear the word freedom, what is the first thing that comes into your mind? Well, some of you, depending on where you live, depending on what you do, depending on your history, on your personal history, on some traumatic things that happened in the past or something that you're living now. Well, freedom takes a lot of senses, has a lot of meanings. But is it the freedom to live, the freedom to die, the freedom to love, to believe, to just be yourself? I was reading the other day an article and I thought it was really puzzling me. It was written by a psychologist and she said a research was just done with a couple of thousand people and the result is amazing. It says we are afraid of freedom. So it got me thinking, what freedom? The freedom not to go to work, the freedom to choose our schedule, the freedom to do whatever we want the whole day. Her opinion was that we are social animals. We need to be in crowds. So of course, if you ask a crowd what's the freedom, then they want to think and they want to say, okay, I want to go on the street. I don't want to be going by numbers. We want to be independent. We want to be able to say whatever we want. It's the freedom of thinking, the freedom of speech, the freedom of being whatever and whoever they are. But if you ask people to be free on their own, they are actually getting into panic. Because if you're free on your own, who you're going to follow? It's always the same. If you are in a group and somebody is taking the lead and he decides or she decides for you, then you may accept the rules, you may accept this way of being or living or doing or thinking. You may sometimes not like it, but overall, if you're not too unhappy, then this is going to be your happy place to be. But if there is nobody, not all of us are ready to be leaders or are ready to be on our own. So what is your freedom today? Or what is your dream of freedom? If you take somebody who has been in jail, when he gets out or she gets out, it's going to be very difficult to manage this sensation of freedom, because it's the freedom to walk down the street, to go into any kind of public spaces, to go on the internet and make research and do whatever you want. Are you gonna like somebody telling you what to do, what time to go to eat and what time to go to bed, and or are you just going to react very strongly? I can give you an example. Someone I know who's been in jail for a couple of years was very, very sensitive to any words that would restrict his freedom. You wouldn't be able to say, we should do this because if not, then this. You would get all kinds of arguments, I just got out of jail and you're already going to reduce my freedom. And it wasn't that really important. But for somebody who has been deprived of his or her freedom, everything is important. If you take for me, my freedom would be to be who I am. And I'm not that really extravagant. We are all special. I always say this. We are unique. But I just want to be me. Don't try to change me. Don't try to impose the way I should speak or walk or talk or where I need to go and spend my time, my money, my vacation, or who I should love or who I should meet and how many times I have to go out and do things and talk to people or behave. I'm really allergic to that. I'm happy to compromise on a lot of things, but some are as sensitive to me as the freedom concept to a recently freed inmate. So for you, what is freedom? You want to be able to work and get your money. You want to be able to join a cause and be able to defend it. You want to be able to punish people. And I really don't think violence is any response. It's no response at all. I'm against violence. So let's not go there. And remember freedom. Your freedom is maybe something that is very typical and relevant to you. And what you consider freedom, for me, is something different. It is very difficult to live in society because we have to find common grounds in freedom. So I guess this is why there are laws, and this is why there are rules, and this is why there are ways to behave together. What happens if you go to a place where there are no rules and you can be whoever you want, do whatever you want? Well, experience done and seen in many places, it's chaos. So can freedom be anything else than chaos? How do you do it if people think, well, my freedom is to create chaos, or my freedom is to have other people fear me? Well, that for me is a sickness right there. But again, freedom, right? But would you be fearless if you had your own freedom? Would you really appreciate it? Would you be able to enjoy it as much as you think you could? Or would you be afraid? I know some people don't want to be even at the top of a company or at the head of a department. They enjoy to be in a little crowd and having a decent person who runs the whole thing. What's your take on that? Have you ever asked yourself what would be the freedom you would fight for? The freedom that you wouldn't accept to let go? So I guess it comes back again to your values. What is really important to you? I believe there are fights that are not worth fighting for. Some are not really important. But again, it depends so much on your history, on what has happened to you and the way you've been raised. So imagine the number of people around you that have all a different idea of freedom. I think we have to be more careful and more empathic towards the others, because we may talk the same language, but as someone said, we get lost in translation because the words have different meaning. Even if we talk about freedom, it's a big concept. It's a way of living also. So who can tell you how you should live? I mean, in those days you have a lot of extremes, even in peace. And if we talk relationships, or being in a couple with someone, or in love with someone, can there be freedom? Do we share the same freedom? There are some countries where women have no freedom to go out, to go and have a coffee with a friend, just a girlfriend, or to have an apartment on their own. Or in some countries it's just not safe. So how do you define their freedom or yours? But it's funny, we always have an idea on what freedom should look for everyone. I believe we need to start right where we are and look at our own lives. Do we have the freedom we dreamt about? Think of you back when you were a child. Maybe your parent never mentioned the word freedom. Or maybe you were in an environment, in a country, in a state, in a place where freedom is all that was talked about, or People died and fought for this. Or some countries where you're actually fighting to survive. Freedom is not really the option. It's about surviving. Okay, I know I said I was going to be more joyful, but I thought it was important that we figure out what freedom means for each of us. And what are you teaching your children? There are the legalities of the word freedom. There is the ethic. There is the religious freedom. There is the fundamental human being freedom. How is your pyramid of freedom built? What do you place on top? And what is the foundation for this? So this is why I say when we meet new people or when you travel, you get to see a whole new dimension of freedom. I remember traveling to Thailand and talking to women in the street or in their shops. I usually get lost and then I talk to people. And that woman, we were talking about our daily lives back where I was living and for hers. And when I was giving her some example of, my daily /miseries / uncomfortable situation, you know what she said to me? She said it's a rich person issue. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, if you are going to survive and you need to go through the day and you need to feed someone and your family is counting on you, then you don't have those kind of issues. You don't have those problems. True. I know. Even a friend of mine would say, do not ever complain about being miserable because you live in one of the most richest country in the world. But you know what? That doesn't make it all the best. Because we have more suicidals and more people trying to take their lives than people being killed by others. So freedom starts in your head. Sometimes we are not free. We put our minds in cages until we break the doors, until we break the cage. What do we call it? Breaking free, right? I always say, if you feel trapped in your own life, do not lose that freedom, the one and only freedom that you have in your head, in your mind. And these are your dreams and your hopes. But to be honest, if we want to realize those dreams and hopes, we need to work on them. Nobody's going to give it to us. If there is one thing I've seen so far, and I'm not the youngest chick around, so you need to work towards a dream. Because if you let yourself go with the flow, and at point, there's nothing wrong with going with the flow, because sometimes you need to give yourself a break. But you need to have some kind of milestones lined up in your life. And you need to have a plan B. And I mention that a lot of time in my blogs for women. And that's also working for men. But freedom is something you work towards. And I don't think we need to count on other people to give us freedom. Because if we don't have it, then we need to fight for it. We need to fight mentally, emotionally, and physically, if needed. So that's my point on freedom. Freedom doesn't scare me. Chaos doesn't scare me because, chaos comes with everything else. There is sun and there is rain and there is peace and there is chaos. And there is love and there is hate, right? But these are all the two faces of a coin. Going back to that coin, right? So I wanted to raise that point today. Because here and then you'll see people going into the street to fight for their rights and fight for their freedom. And I guess at one point they were all agreeing on one specific point of freedom. What I think we should all do is keep in our head, what do we want for ourselves? what do we need for ourselves, enable us and others to, be more at ease with this world. We're in a difficult situation right now. No need to hide, no need to, fake it. It's not an easy time to be, and the years ahead are going to be even more troublesome. So we need to be really strong about what we are not going to compromise for ourselves. I always say you cannot change everybody, although my friend says I'm always trying. But you can have an influence on somebody else's life. And if you can't, just work on yourself. And when I say just, I know this is the hardest part. But I see women that were doomed, that were in a path where you thought this is one way, this is a dead end. And it's not the end until it's the end, right? So if you're not in the best place, then gather your strengths, make a plan. And if you don't know where to start, look around. I'm sure there's someone close to you who can help you. And if it's not close to you, look a bit further down the road. There are many people, just like you and me, who are looking to preserve the little freedom we have wherever we live and whatever status, we're living in. But we together, we can achieve much more. So this was my pep talk, and the sun's back. I really wish you a really great week or a great weekend, and take care of yourself. You deserve the best. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Hippie Life brand, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.